All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. The conversation is continuing even during the break, but we're having a conversation on the state of the nation. Pretty much, we're also talking about looking forward into Madaraka Day. What are the issues? What are the priorities? And we'll take a look at the previous Madaraka Day speech as well. We'll talk about some of the issues to do with tax, but Maliba, you had a point of response on
Yes, I needed just to respond.
Yes.
And it's important we go the Napoleon way. That you embed me between the two of them so that then once I deal with one of them each at a time. Now, moving on quickly, I just need to say this. You know, Alenga here just thinks that just because he is not in UDA, he's saying the truth. Not being a member of UDA does not make you a truth teller. You become a soothsayer if you just think that being in UDA, that is how you qualify to be a liar. There are so many liars outside here who are actually speaking for other reasons. So that in itself is actually an easy and cheap point. We should actually get into serious stuff too. I pointed out to where you get the numbers, and I talked about that. I took time to flesh out. I got midway, and I came to the show. I pointed to where you can do that. You went ahead and even pointed out some of those numbers. But then he goes ahead and says that we cannot just be throwing around numbers. You read, this is lazy commentary. We cannot wake up in the morning. This is a prime show, Trevor, the highest show in this country. Actually in East Africa. Then you come here and you start a kwenda huko kuja hapa kind of argument. You cannot do that here. When you come on Daybreak, you must read. Any lazy commentary should not be allowed here. And when you question other people's number, you don't question the kwenda huko kuja hapa kind of way. You question numbers with numbers. So when you say that the president did not spend what he says, what numbers do you have? This is not a gossip column. This is not a gossip magazine. This is a current affairs show. Daybreak is a serious place, Trevor. So it's important for us to actually...
So one of the other...
So having said that, Trevor, I just need to actually finalize on this. You know, there's too much passion and very little points. So rather than raise passion, raise points.
Okay.
There's a little bonga point.
You're losing
the point. You're having all the time to discuss people.
So
raise points.
Finally,
waiting
Trevor,
for the points, but
I actually was calling you out. So finally, if it's important to Kenyans and they are discussing, William Ruto as a president who is available and wants to be held accountable will respond to it. If he is quiet, he's hiding something. If he responds to it, he looks like a suspect. So William Ruto is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. So what do people want? They want a president who responds. If he responds, it's wrong. If he keeps quiet, it's wrong. You guys have raised an issue. And if it is something that can get us talking on social media and elsewhere, the president definitely, as an available president, one who wants to demystify power, he speaks to it. And he has done that twice. But again, we are here saying, and that's not how it is. And like I said, everybody else must bring data. On Daybreak, everybody must bring data. We only trust in God.
All right. Alenga, I'll give you a chance before I bring in Josephine.
Yeah, I think...
I was responding to him.
I think we would just want to make it very clear to Arnold that, number one, this is not a government show, so don't be so passionate like you're pushing a government. You're almost arresting us for asking questions. Number two, I think the things you say, you can actually say them without anger in your tone.
There's no anger. You are the
So be easy.
It was quiet when you're talking.
Be easy, relax, and tell us what the government is doing for us. We are the people that you claim you're working for. So if we ask that we are not seeing, make us see. And there is no evil in that.
Okay.
True, and I say this.
Right. Yes,
Yeah, let me just say this, and gentlemen, with all due respect, I think the bigger conversation with Kenyans is about accountability. The US has posted for its citizens who pay that tax to them. Then you cannot tell Kenyans they have to go to the US website to figure out what their president got to them. That is information that should be availed to them. And not forgetting that it's not all of us who will be able to read the good English, Maliba, you're talking about, and decode data the way you're saying it. So it's up to the government that we elected, that we sustain by our taxes, to avail that information in a manner that a common person
All communication advisors like Maliba.
Chico makes a fair point.
Essentially, she's saying you failed in your job.
Yes, true. That one I will actually take it up. That first of all, I think as government, public policy communication has been a problem. For example, if you looked at the finance bill, it's too technical for even average people. That is why politicians who spend more time with the budget and the document will pick 2-3 things and run with them. So Treasury needs to find a way of coming up with a popular version, a Mwananchi version, the same way the Americans did a fact sheet. I think on our side that can be done. On
Okay.
that, Shiko, that's a fair point.
So, Josephine,
Yes.
there's an issue of taxation that we're talking about, and it's also on the front page of the Daily Nation here. Finance experts warn against car and cooking oil taxes. This is the technical finance bill that Maliba is talking about. From the snippets that you've read, is this a good bill for us or not?
From the snippets I've read in the finance bill,
Yes.
if you scrap off just one or two sections, this is probably the best thing that will happen to the country.
Why?
Ask me why. Let's start with, most people are afraid of taxation, right? Motor vehicle tax, tax on bread, the cooking oil tax. Those are the ones that are being highlighted. Just as Maliba said, MPs are taking 1, 2, 3 things and running with it. Media is taking 1, 2, 3 things, running with it. There are some of them that are actually going to be detrimental. But let's talk about something like tax relief. You know, we understand about tax relief, right? So with this finance bill, once you have a certain pay increase or a pay rate, now the tax relief will come and you'll actually find out that you're paying even less pay than you did with the previous finance bill. And let's talk about things like technology. Of course, now they're introducing a lot of, it's a matter of, do people pay more or do more people pay in this sense? So it's introducing more people pay rather than people pay more. In this sense, yes, I think that is.
That's actually the main concern, because
Yeah,
there's a bite here from the president himself, who actually talked about that same thing on taxes. Let's listen to what the president said. That was, I think, the previous
Madaraka Day.
Let's
Yes.
listen to this.
We identified a number of barriers to effective realization of their economic well-being. The first was the bureaucracy in regulation and compliance, including tax administration. Second, the extreme informality of most enterprises, which effectively relegated them to the margins of empowerment, facilitation, or even recognition as lawful undertakings. Third, was the misconception around expanding the national tax base. Is it about people paying more or more people paying? The answer lies in empowering more Kenyans to enter the taxable income category through intentional effort to create millions of new jobs and millions of new taxpayers in due course.
So which one is it, Josephine? People paying more or more people paying?
More people pay. You're introducing a regime where instead of, I've had people talking about even the National Prayer Breakfast, the opposition parties, they're saying that the government wants to kill the middle income, the middle class. In the society, or increase the gap between the rich and the poor.
You disagree?
I definitely disagree.
Okay.
I definitely disagree, because what the president wants is to empower these low people to get to a point where they're actually middle income and probably taxable. In this sense, for example, and even he's providing tax relief to the middle income. We talked about tax relief. We talked about the taxable, when your income is revenue generating up to 5 million, it's vatable. But now the finance bill is increasing it to 8 million now. That's when you become vatable. But then on this smaller end, it doesn't have a lot of direct taxes, and that's a good thing. But then also it has the back end. I'm not gonna say that it's all sugary. It really needs amendment. It has the back end of indirect taxes now. Now the indirect taxes are the bread taxes, we're taxing bread. You're reducing tax relief, you're reducing vatable income on business, but now you're introducing indirect taxes on increasing VAT and removing a lot of tax exemptions on certain things. But then again, it's also making the country look investor-friendly. For example, they've removed capital gains tax on transfer of SEZ zones. So they're introducing, according to the previous Madaraka Day, which is the center of attention, the president said that he's going to add 5 more SEZ zones other than the one in Athi River. And in those 5 SEZ zones, you are able to transfer your zone without gaining capital gains tax, without incurring capital gains tax. And that's something that I feel is going to make this thing investor-friendly.
But that's the thing. Despite having the special economic zones that you're talking about, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the Institute of Economic Affairs, all of them have said that this bill is going to make business difficult. In fact, some of the manufacturers have said they're now considering moving their plants to a different country. You don't think they're wrong?
Now, as I said, this finance bill does have its merits and demerits. The cooking oil industry, for example, will suffer a lot. The motor importing
That is
industry
almost like a basic.
will definitely.
So there's more bad than
We
good.
can't even make the bread if the oil is
They
expensive.
don't care about it. They don't.
Let her finish her point first of all. So on a give and take, you think it should go the way it is, or what happens?
I feel like this bill should be approached objectively. It does have its merits, and those merits make the country actually look investor-friendly from an outlook. But it does have its demerits, and those demerits are the things that will directly impact the citizen, and that include what is just on the front page of the paper, the motor vehicle tax, which is non-feasible, especially for the insurance companies, and the cooking oil taxes. So I think it is a middle point, but it is actually better than the finance bill that was proposed in 2023 and passed, in my opinion.
All right. Yes, Shiko disagrees.
Yeah, because, and I'm going to talk here as a young person who's trying to do business in this country, who's trying to sustain a number of young people employed, right? When you talk to us about the reduction of taxes through tax relief, how much is that? Because as an employer who sees the deductions that happen on these paychecks, there's no relief that can cover for that. Then let me tell you something. You're talking about the non-feasible tax, the vehicle taxes, all right? Majority of young people right now are Uber drivers, Bolt drivers, right? And this is how they're sustaining their families. You've added a tax on their struggling business because it's struggling right now. I came here via an Uber, and the guy was telling me how he's had to cut down his expenses to a point of selling his car and getting employed to sustain his livelihood. Then you're going to sit here and tell us this finance bill is all beautiful. Again, the ignorance of this government again. I'm coming to where the chairman of the finance committee looked at us and told us, if you cannot pay the vehicle tax, it's like this good road that was made by the former president, the expressway. Don't use it because you can't afford it. What are you doing? You're deepening inequality in this country. The same person came to our faces and told us, you know what? We are increasing tax on bread because Kenyans are struggling with diabetes. You understand? This is a whole... No. This is a whole chairperson of the finance committee.
No, Kuria is not here to defend himself.
You understand? Yeah. No, but they're here with the brief of the party, so they can help us understand where this is being informed from. But I'm sitting down and asking myself, for Kenyans who cannot even afford a meal a day, you're going to increase their indirect tax and assume they're still going to survive. How? I think we just need to wake up to the reality that the greed of getting taxes from a very small group of people is not helping but killing us.
Okay.
The greed of trying to tax everyone because you just think this person has a paycheck is not going to solve the problem that Kenyans have.
All right. I'll come to you to speak as government, but let me bring in Alenga. Alenga, you know, there's something interesting that Josephine and the president raised. Is it about people paying more or more people paying? And how do you achieve that?
I think the sad bit about the regime of the day is how insensitive they can be. How I don't even know what word to use, but it's like they wake up in the morning and they say, I don't think we have really even inflicted enough pain. What more can we do? They go for a symposium and like, how else can we just finger them? You know, these people need to cry. Because, I mean, you look at the taxation, and I am struggling to understand where you can put the word investor-friendly in the discourse on this finance bill. Let's say, for instance, Trevor, you're just sending money to your mother in the village. You're being taxed on that money. And is this money that you have, there's no value that money is adding in the process of you transferring it to another person. You're increasing, charges on withdrawing your own money from the bank. You've been paid by Royal Media. They have taxed you already. And now you're just going to get 2,000 to pay a bill somewhere. Somebody's still taxing you on that amount of money. And then you look at a vehicle you bought, maybe even on a loan, a vehicle you bought just to go to church on Sunday with your children and your wife. But somebody's saying, I think you need to pay for just going to church and coming back. I mean, what nonsense is that? This regime needs to figure out that you cannot grow an economy by constantly snatching from the citizens. And that's what they're doing. Because I am calling it snatching because every time a tax is gotten from you, you have to track all the way up to its usage. In better countries where our president visits and marvels at their roads and their lights and everything, they account for their taxes. And that is why, even for the benefit of that accountability, as Chico said, they take their citizens through what they have given to other countries. Here, everything is shrouded in secrecy. I mean, we cannot justify the injustice that this finance bill metes upon the Kenyan people. And maybe just for a consideration, the government should tell us, maybe upfront, how much they want from us, each one of us. Then we try to figure out how we'll pay.
First of all, I like the tangent we are taking in this particular discussion, but I need to start from this particular point. The Kenya Kwanza administration and the UDA party is simply what the doctor prescribed for this country. Why do I say so? Is that the proposals, the sentimentalized poetry that I see here is very much what I would call over-the-counter prescriptions. You know, an economy is like a human body. Even if I have got the similar symptoms, a wise person will know that you have to go to the doctor. Diagnostics is important. That you go there. I can know how malaria feels. I'm a Westerner myself. As much as I was born and grew up in the city. But then I'm a Westerner. I will know how malaria feels. But then you are always told, go to the doctor. The people at National Treasury do diagnostics. What we are proposing here a lot of times is far detached from data. It's very sentimental. And not that it's any lesser. How we feel is as important as the facts elsewhere. But this is the point. You see, when we discuss all these things, have we, for example, looked at how the Finance Bill 2023-2024 has performed? What no one is actually saying is that the economy is now, the last time it grew this much was 5 years ago. That is data out there. No one is pointing at that. You had the hue and cry last year.
But the question is, where did it go?
I'm saying, I'm actually building up that.
Small substratum.
I am building up that.
Yes, and I also need you to address what the professionals are talking about. You may say that it's over the counter prescription.
That's what I'm actually saying.
Kenya Association of Manufacturers, ISPAC, FKE,
I'll get to that.
All of them have said it's not going to work.
I'll get to that, Trevor. If you can take time and just look at the hue and cry last year, the data we have now pointing to a growth only equivalent to 5%, and the people at National Treasury, we people in government need to take that seriously. Number one, you are finding members of parliament coming out here to discuss the finance bill, and they never took time to look at the budget policy statement. Before you look at the budget policy statement, there's something else that they have called the budget review and outlook paper. They have not looked at that. And that is why you get those Majitu stories about we are increasing tax on bread because people have got diabetes. Who told them? That didn't even come from Treasury. Because if you look at the BPS, if you look at the outlook paper, I'll tell you so simple, that on government expenditure, tax expenditure, bread and milk tax government the highest because bread and milk are zero-rated. Being zero-rated means that the people who supply bread and processors of milk go back, tax. They go and claim, and government is trying to cut that short. So, and then realistically, my mother in Matungu, she has got her cows. Some of them.
Stay there first of all, Arnold, because I also don't want.
Trevor, you're going to derail my train of thought.
I also don't want you to lose people in the process. It is true what you're saying.
I am moving with my audience. It's you who's actually derailing my audience.
But wait. I don't want you to lose the people in the process. Okay. So if it is zero-rated, it means input tax is claimed by the people who actually.
Yes.
That true.
And that is a lot of money actually in terms of billions.
True. That is a fact. Right. But then if it is now not zero-rated and it is put on tax exempt, it means then that this cost will be staggered back to the consumer.
That is what I was going to build on.
Yes.
I was going to that point. Thank you for actually helping me get there, even though I was already there. This is the point. That, you know, and that's why I was mentioning my mother in Matungu. Then my mother has got some few cows there. Some of them she claims are mine, but I know she's the only one who does the milk. Her neighbors buy milk from her. She sells milk even to the hospital next to it. That is not processed milk. My mother has never asked for input from the government of Kenya. Bread, and this I will say with a lot of sensitivity because I was born in Mathare. I went to Western only when I went to Kakamega High School. But then I will say this with a lot of sensitivity. That we in Mathare, we would eat mandazi and chapati ile inapikwa pale nje. Hiyo mandazi ilikuwa kubwa inakaa kama pistol. Nowadays, of course, imepunguka vile uchumi inaendelea kupunguka. This is what we are saying. That largely the people who are doing processed milk and doing bread are a little bit higher on the scale. So we are looking at this as a government. Why would we be losing these tens of billions subsidizing? Because that is what it is anyway. Subsidizing a little group and it's paid for by everybody else. That's so you balance out the pros and cons. So the story about diabetes is neither here nor there. It simply speaks to the laziness in Parliament because the budget cycle ordinarily starts in September. Before this document we are talking about here comes to the public, it's been in Parliament at least 3 times. So one of those things we really need to speak to is that Parliament still remains the weakest link in our governance because Parliament is a budget-making body and not a let endorser budget-making process. They must take that particular function seriously. So when they come out here and they give us Majitu stories, they should be called out. We should give them time. It doesn't matter wherever they come from, whether they are from Kenya Kwanza or whether they are from the Azimio side. Because I'll remind you, Trevor, when the president, for example, said that everybody in government must cut their expenditure, you can trace the president's cut in expenditure, especially in the confidential budget. That you can trace. You can trace and put it out there. But what did parliamentarians do?
They increased CDF by 30 million.
No, let's not go around that. They stood on the floor of the House eloquently and told off the president. So it cannot be that Parliament is captured by the executive when it comes to doing their work. But when it comes to their allowances and traveling and everything else, they are independent. And when they spoke, by the way, it was bipartisan on both sides. Okay. So what am I saying? I'm saying that a lot of the problems we are having in communicating this is actually a communication problem. So when you hear somebody talking about diabetes, when there is a clear explanation to it, you realize that there is a failure in the House. When you hear somebody saying that if you cannot use, and those are our members, you don't want to pay this tax, you don't use it. Again, I have got a thinking that Kuria Kimani is a very brilliant young man with a PhD.
He's not here to prevent.
No, I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying.
Himself.
That's why I'm thinking, probably the question, because again, the only part we have seen is his response. I suspect that he was asked the question either in a way that would earn that retort.
No, the question.
But be that as it was.
Some of us watched the entire interview.
I can watch the interview on YouTube.
Let me finalize on this. So, on the motor vehicle tax, circulation tax, for example, the cost of keeping vehicles on the road has gone high. It's the government that picks the tab in building infrastructure, in trying to better public transportation. That has actually gone higher. In fact, in the Green Fiscal Incentives draft paper of 2017, government proposed to do a congestion tax. I'll just give you a run-through on numbers. The transport sector contributes 11% to our GHG. Those are greenhouse gases. Out of that 11%, 67% is produced by the road sector alone. So even as we try to go green, even as the world goes green, our partners are bringing in a little bit of support. We are also matching that. So we will have to do that. So when we go around that, there's a very clear explanation to that. But why do we get a lot of these Majitu stories? It's because people who are coming from Parliament, some of them coming from those particular committees, have not even taken time to look at the budget policy statement. Some of them have not even got, and this is their work, it's not our work. So around that, we must also accept that the kind of communication that we have out here is missed out because a lot of us sometimes fail on our...
Okay.
So, on both taxes, for example, that are being sensationalized and people running around with, there are explanations to it. You have heard about, for example, the government cutting, doing away with the school feeding program. No one actually has been bold, including the media, to just go back and say that the committee reinstated the 2 billion shillings. People have spoken about the cut on Linda Mama. No one is actually addressing the fact that a lot of what Linda Mama was doing has actually been catered for in the social health insurance, the new SHIF process, and therefore it doesn't matter. No one, for example, is actually addressing that as we consolidate the budget and bring it down from 4.2 trillion to 3.9 trillion, no one is actually factoring in the fact that we are cutting and trying to ensure that the budget is as realistic as possible. No one, when they tell you that the education sector, the budget has actually been cut, no one is telling you that the CBC process was new, and therefore there are some of the processes that we factored in the budget last year that are either they come after 5 years. Like, for example, when we were doing curriculum development, you cannot have curriculum development as a big budget continuously. When you are building, when you are printing books, some of these budget lines are not as recurrent. It was a new system, and at the initiation level, you put in a lot of money. So every one of that, people, as in every one of those decisions, is informed by rationale. The people who sit at National Treasury are not mad people. Some of the finest economists we have are actually there. Not some. Actually, the finest economists we have as a country are in that place.
All right.
Because if you ever tried to balance our budget and make it work, Trevor, you will go mad.
Okay.
I finalize by telling you this on this particular submission.
Yes.
That William Ruto, for example, in the last let me talk about 16 months. I'll not talk about the last 16 months. He had a debt to repay upwards of 2.5 trillion. And how much will he collect in a year? A maximum of about 2.1, 2.2 trillion shillings. You have got 47% of whatever you have collected going to salaries and all that. Then you have got the development budget. To get us where we are, we had a debt that was actually the monkey on our back. The elephant in the room was about repaying the Eurobond. You remember when the dollar was running around the shilling? That particular economic miracle is one we do not want to talk about. But the truth is that Kenya Kwanza and William Ruto performed magic to get us where we are. We might not accept, but that is a fact.
Let's focus on something else. It's still on the same conversation, because what the statement that was made was in the previous Madaraka Day. Now we're looking at the Madaraka Day tomorrow. What do we expect from the president? Let's bring up some of the feedback. There's a lot coming through at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. I think I see another one here from one... Alex Mayore. Alex Mayore is a youth from the Third Way Alliance. He says, good morning, Trevor. Ask Shiko, who's talking about youth fund being revoked, saying it's a big deal. Ask her how efficient has the fund been in the first place. How many youth entrepreneurs has had the fund actually uplift them? Where is the data and statistics of its impact? I have personally tried to engage youth fund, and the bureaucracy was insane. I ended up seeking help from a loan company for my own business. He continues to say, I think Kenyans are losing the point discussing too much about the transport cost of the president trip. The benefits we have signed with the US are long-term beneficial to Kenya. Many African states would be eager to get the same deals. Godi Baraza says, as a patriotic Kenyan, I hope that the opportunities that President Ruto unlocked this trip to the US aren't just convenient promissory notes. The fact that many Kenyans are blatantly denied US visas should be a point of interrogation. Okay? See what else. Nixon says, I think it was a bit risky for friends to fly Ruto to USA. Suppose they maliciously planned to fly him into the wrong direction. What happened? Okay. Bob says, I expect President William Ruto to talk more about economy and the controversial finance bill of 2024, which has generated a heated debate, especially from the opposition side. Eddie says, Kenyans, why is Ruto spending 200 million on a jet? Ruto's men. The US government is paying for that jet. US government denies. Ruto, that jet was cheaper than boarding a KQ. Also, Ruto, friends took care of that expense. Why should one question have too many inconsistent answers? Okay. So he says, friends of the president's trip will expect something in return. The conversation should focus on how the finance bill's taxes impact the youth and the middle class. We can't build a nation on lies and empty promises with high taxes with unemployment, okay? Alexi says, I think Kenyans are losing the point discussing too much about the transport cost of the president trip. The benefits we have signed with the US are long-term beneficial to Kenya. Many African states would be eager to get the same deals. NATO ally, etc. Josephine, let me start with you. What do you expect the president to talk about as a young person yourself? The Madaraka Day is coming up. What do you expect him to address?
Well, many things. Let's start with education. I think we're having an almost full transition to the CBC. That's first of all. And as Maliba said, they are now cutting the cost of CBC and whatnot. Apart from CBC, we have the tertiary institutions. We have the increase in school fees, the tertiary institutions, which was backed up by the fact that the fees hadn't increased since 1991. But then now, increase in fees, he talked about now scrapping off HELB, bringing in another fund to help with tertiary institution funds, bringing in now in the US government, he talked about the Kennedy Mboya Fund, where we transport 60 students every year in an exchange program, what have you. So there is a lot going on in the education sector, but there is not a straight, it's just talking about this. I think I would want him so much to talk about how he's streamlining education, and because that is a big thing for young people right now, and also helping us, because he's increased fees, which is, okay, rightfully, by 225%, by the way, rightfully so, because the subsidies, you need to buy back those subsidies, but then how is he going to help the young people from there? Number two, unemployment and salaries and remuneration and what have you. I saw the posting of interns, medical interns. They're saying that we should live within our means, telling doctors to live within their means, amongst other things. I feel like that is something, and now saying that civil servants will not be PNP, now be on contract. Also saying that teachers now will not be paid when school children are on holiday. That is, now we're going to education in order to get jobs, and then those jobs are diminished, making it look like small things, and saying that if one of the member of parliament said that if you don't accept it's a stipend, you wouldn't have gone to medical school and come and step on us, telling us what to pay you and what have you. So those are the things that he needs to streamline, especially for young people. Our education. Then what next after education? Are you telling us now, okay, sure, you're giving us 70,000 once we finish medical school for 7 years and 1 year in internship. Okay, you're giving us 70,000. What next? Yesterday, the PSC posted jobs. And now medical officers, now these are not interns, medical officers, the pay range was about that 70,000 that he's actually saying. So it doesn't even get better after internship. You're saying it's a stipend. So what next for unemployment? And also talk about the digital space. It's a Gen Z. We're Gen Zs. I'm a Gen Z. And
you're the only Gen Z.
I'm the only Gen Z.
That's why I'd also like you to ask these panelists what your concerns are with their points. But finish this one first.
I'm a Gen Z, and I'm in the digital space a lot. And I'd like him, because the finance bill, as I said, it has its merits and demerits. So now there's, a CPT tax on digital space, and you're taxing the digital markets now. Now, we don't win when you get into the employment sector. We don't win when you get to the digital sector. Can he tell us, and I know he's a very technical savvy president, so he tells us what is his strategy going forward for the digital sector as well. I think those are the key points for me.
Okay. All right.
As a young person.
Alenga, what do you want the president to address?
I think, first of all, I would just like the president to be able to listen to experts and stop listening to the choir members like Arnold, who call our complaints poetry, and even technical opinion is called poetry. So once we get that standing within our policy framework, then it helps us to shape where the country is going. Number two, I'd like the president to focus on creating employment. He should stop listening to the superfluous lies from those who surround him that Kenyans are just fine. Young people are having opportunity. They are making dollars from their laptops. That's not happening. We need just to get back to the table and ask ourselves, all these young people that we are churning out of the university every year, including medical doctors who are now outside for 2 years in a row, and others are graduating to find those ones still waiting for employment. Where is the direction we are giving to these young people? Number three, the president should focus on food security. We had an incident of fake fertilizer, or not genuine fertilizer, whichever direction you come from, and we have a consequence that will come as a result of planting with that kind of fertilizer. So what we are expecting next year in the next harvest might put us in a very difficult situation. So we must have plans to be able to mitigate that resultant damage. Then also we have the flood victims that are still languishing. We have poor roads as a result of the floods. Right now, if you drive through Nairobi, almost every road has a pothole. It's up and down, you know. And right now, you even wonder, is it the potholes that are in the road, or is the road that is wrongfully in potholes? So we need to fix that. And lastly, education. There's a budget cut on university funding, and that is going to bring us a problem, because is it that we are trying to fix the problem of unemployment by ensuring that many learners do not transition into higher education so that they can come and ask us for jobs? I mean, I think the budget for those issues have to be looked into, because we are at a point where, as common citizens, we don't know what is happening. The government seems to only be working for those who are within the government. And then I think also it's imperative for the president to do some housekeeping in terms of his government, because we have seen cabinet secretaries who have outrightly not really performed well. And are they going to continue just sitting pretty without delivering to Kenyans? We have a government where everyone seems to wield so much power, even Arnold. Everyone. Everyone in this government can tell you anything at any time, any public baraza. We've had CSS trying to fire, OCSs here and there. I mean, all that shenanigans. I think the president can speak to that and just bring order in the country, so that at the end of the day, he's the one who is in the reins of power today, and we have to respect that. But then we need to have a presidency or a government that takes care of the issues that we are having. And I think it's also important just to have maybe a department in government that just collects information from citizens, the sentiments of citizens, because there is no government that has ever trashed sentiments of Kenyans or feelings of Kenyans or feedback of Kenyans like this government. So if we can have a structure within which all that feedback can be taken into consideration, and the president goes through it and sees which one makes sense and where can we fix, Because, like, for instance, Kenyans have asked, why are we having police officers being shipped out when we have a bandit issue that we have never sorted? When we have mugging issues that we've never sorted even in our cities. So why are we conveniently availing ourselves to clean up some other person's room when we have a lot of stench in our own?
Okay.
Those are legitimate questions that Kenyans are asking.
Yeah. You both raise issues of education, and